CatholicPsych Show. Today we'll be talking about Hunter Biden, Apple Intelligence. Potentially we'll be talking about AI and elephants if we have time. And then I
Like the
really hope
elephant in the room, or what kind of elephant?
Yes, like real elephants.
Oh, real elephants.
Real elephants.
Not the elephant in the room.
No, not the elephant in the room. And hopefully we'll get to an article on changing social conventions. I want to hear some of your hot takes on the way things have changed. Maybe if we get really depressed talking about politics, we'll just jump right into something a bit lighter. But first,
that sounds way more depressing.
First, in local news, we saw Jordan Peterson last night.
Oh yeah, JP,
not 2, just JP.
JP1 needs a conversion.
JBP, Jordan B. Peterson.
When Jordan Peterson has a conversion, we're gonna call him JBP2.
And so we generally walked out a little disappointed, right? A little disappointed with the talk.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it was a lot of fun hanging out with you, my wife, and you and Teresa, and it was fun to hang out, have dinner. All positives, all wins across the board.
Yes.
Oakdale Theater in Connecticut's great little theater.
Really nice.
Really nice. All that's a win. Content. I was nice to see. Actually, Jonathan Pajot was touring with them for a couple weeks. That was a surprise. So that was a lot of fun.
Yep.
But just severely underwhelmed and even disappointed. Actually, by all three: Jonathan, Tammy's comments, and Jordan.
Just not enough. Like, just don't cross the finish line. So close. And I remarked to you, I think maybe it was to Barbara last night, like he's no JP2. I think that when we expose ourselves to the highest level of intellectual minds who express things not only in such a profound intellectual abstract way, but because of their personal holiness, it just penetrates your heart and moves you.
Yeah.
Like, I like some of Jordan Peterson's ideas, but it doesn't move me. He doesn't inspire me to live the Christian life or anything.
Not even a little bit. And the thing is, I don't know. This is the last show on his tour. I didn't realize that either. And I was like, maybe he's just tired.
Yeah.
He's getting lazy.
Yeah.
He's not coherent. Like, he's even less coherent than he normally is, which is
normally isn't
surprising.
Yes.
And so a lot of times I really appreciate what he has to say. But his stories, his content, his cohesion, it wasn't even there. I think it was he probably had a C plus performance relative to his own abilities.
Yeah. And this experience inspired you so much that you woke up this morning and recorded a podcast on John Paul II, right?
Man, I was on fire. I was like, I'm done. I got to stop messing around. We have so many side projects.
Yeah, we do.
And I'm just like, you know what? I just got to go all in. I was like, all right, what do I need to say? And then I just kept going, and then I kept going, and then I kept going. And I was like, oh man, this will be next week's podcast, Being Human 182.
Yeah.
We need to get really serious about who we are as a Catholic Psych Institute and what this world needs. And our gifts and mission matches what I think is one of the deepest, most pressing needs of the world today. So we just got to show up.
Yeah.
And I keep telling that to people, people I work with, people that work for me, literally. And then I'm like, I got to show up. I just have to start. We got to stop messing around.
Yeah. And the crux of it, the little teaser, is that John Paul II is not just a brilliant philosopher. He's not just a brilliant theologian, but he's an absolutely brilliant psychologist. And he gives us a pathway forward in terms of a healthy way to live psychologically, which is an untapped resource in the church. Is that fair to say that that's the...
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's a good summary. We've said this for years, and then you go back to Witness to Hope, the biography by George Weigel.
Yeah.
And he talks about the theology of the body, and he says that there's this ticking time bomb ready to go off. I've got commentaries on that. I published it. I podcasted about it. And it's like, okay, that didn't really happen.
It's
Maybe
still ticking.
It's a slow burn. It's a slow burn wick fuse. It's a, and then I talked about how it's like more of like a genetic mutation that's happened. So like some parts of society picked up on what JP2 is doing, and they're going to pass it on to their kids. And, I was just like, you know what? We got to do more than this. Like,
I know
there's a real problem. It's a problem that people don't know John Paul II enough and the depth of what he offers the world. And we got to just stop like messing around.
Well, the thing is, it's almost like the window for his influence is closing. From what I'm hearing, there are trends among Catholics that are ultra traditional.
That's firing me up.
And are reacting to like a very liberal worldview, identity politics, and like the sexual ethic of the world. And they look at John Paul II, and they, as they're moving into more of a hyper masculinity, a toxic masculine view of the world, they're looking at John Paul II and saying, "Oh, he's too feminine.
Yeah,
he's too emotional. He's too sensitive."
Yeah,
like, no. Don't go too far. You're missing something here. You're missing something really important.
This is talking about it now unconsciously. I think last night what kind of fired me up a little bit too for this morning was like Jordan Peterson is in many ways incomprehensible. And when he's talking, you're like, I don't know what he's saying.
Well, yeah.
And I was looking at this crowd, and this is not like a criticism, but it's like a MAGA crowd for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a large community of people on this conservative side of things.
Yes.
With varying degrees of philosophical mindset and experience and training. Yeah. And varying stomach for incomprehensible things being said and being able to figure out like what is actually being said here.
Yes, even those with philosophical training would listen to him and say, "Wait a minute, you're making these big leaps of analogy from like playing as a child to what Christ is saying."
And you got to have the hubris of like the hubris and genius of like Dawkins to be able to say like, this is kind of bunk, like this is BS.
This is illogical. Not that
everybody else is like, oh, worshiping the idol of incomprehensibility. And it's like, oh, it's so complicated that it must be true. And I must just have, it's like, oh, it's way over my head. Like, so this is what I realized. John Paul II is in many ways incomprehensible. And people, it's the same challenge, but with an entirely different treasure inside the treasure box once you crack the code and open the lock.
Yes.
It's like a real treasure inside.
Yeah. Yes. I think just going back one step before we go into what John Paul II offers, I think one of the reasons why Jordan Peterson is so attractive is that there's a conservative audience that feels, oh, finally, someone really bright reflects my values.
That's a good point. It's a good point.
And
that's enough.
Right. And that's enough because normally the bright people of the world, the people in control of the media, whether it's the academics or it's Hollywood, that doesn't reflect who I am. And here's someone that's like, oh, there's someone smart to kind of like fight for the way I look at things.
Yeah.
And that's one part of it. But also I would say this too, leading into John Paul II, like if you're going to listen to the treasury of wealth and wisdom and insight that John Paul II has to offer, it's like you're going all in on being religious. Like Jordan Peterson, you could kind of like allude to God, dabble in God, but still kind of have a conversation with the secular opponent.
Kind of. I would push back on that a little bit. I think.
Well, he's not as explicitly religious. I mean, we're talking about the Pope versus a psychologist.
Yeah, but I'm not even talking about John Paul II as a Pope. I'm talking about him as a psychologist. I'm talking about him as like his understanding of the human person, and he could be as non-religious as Jordan Peterson. And actually, Jordan Peterson is like in many ways more religious.
Sure, but he's always the Pope in people's minds, is what I'm saying.
But that's what I'm saying. We need to change. This is my whole point.
Yes.
If we study the psychology of John Paul II, we will leave behind the fact that he's valuable because he was a pope, or he's interesting, or it should be listened to because he's a pope, and realize that he should have been listened to the genius of this guy, he was writing this stuff when he was in his 30s.
Yeah.
Like, he broke open the most important psychology in the last 200 years in his young 30s.
It's impressive.
And held court and held his ground against the greatest philosophers of his day.
Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about often. I kind of do, but there's moments where I'm like, what?
And there's like not a religious word in it. It's not
Yeah.
that there is a sense of objectivity, of even moral objectivity, or some kind of like some platform of understanding there's a difference between good and evil or good and bad. But this is also, I was also thinking like Jordan Peterson speaking to this particular crowd, like he's as incomprehensible. But the core underlying message that he's basically saying is like, you can think about how to be a better version of yourself and you can choose to do good things.
I know we had like 30 minutes on, hey, guess what? Cain is good. Excuse me, Cain. Don't model yourself after Cain. Model yourself after Abel. Don't be jealous and murder people. Don't murder your brother. Actually, just strive for holiness. I mean, there's nothing really all that groundbreaking about that.
No, and he's like, oh, Abel was great because he gave his first fruits to God and trusted in God, and the sun was always shining on him, and his brother was jealous, but really his brother, if you're honest, and he makes interesting points like the culture of victimization and all stuff. His brother's like, oh, I'm such a victim. Oh, I Abel has privilege. I don't, like all this stuff. It's like, well, Cain, you didn't give your first fruits to God. So therefore, your whole life is screwed up because of it. And that's like, at the end of the day, I'm just like, hey, Jordan Peterson, who are you giving your first fruits to?
Right.
Like, who are you worshiping? Because you're not telling anybody. You're not, you're not being honest. You're not being consistent.
He just constantly implies that he has religious faith and trust in God, but he will never explicitly say it. And I think that's
like his first.
That's a question of
like
branding.
The admission of who he really believes and what he really is, and even it was interesting. And this is interesting, and maybe it's like all part of this master plan, and that's fine if it's part of the master plan to piss people off like me and you. And then get a lot of people talking about him from every angle, and everybody's drawn into this. But even Jonathan Pageau in the introduction was like, Jordan is wrestling with God. Maybe this is all like a grand master plan.
On stage, he's wrestling
on stage. He's like, you will now watch Jordan wrestle with God. And he goes, and this is like probably the most important line of the whole 2 hours. My hope and my prayer is that he, at the end of this battle, receives a new name, just like Jacob.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, so like, at least Pageau sees it.
Yeah.
But it's like part of the show.
Yeah.
It's like written in as like, this is what they're saying. Like, okay, so maybe this whole thing is like all
performative,
right, Jordan,
a little performative.
Super performative.
Yeah.
Maybe so. And if he comes around too, he's like, I wrestled with God, and then, he broke my rib, and now I get a new name, and here's who I am. It's like, okay, bravo, good show. And now join the ranks and get in line with every other celebrity that needs to go back to the humility of beginning your life of conversion.
Yeah.
And actually show us who you worship. And if you want to be on the stage, like I saw, maybe you posted this actually in the list of current events. Is it Bishop Barron who commented on, or was this just on Instagram? Bishop Barron commented on, the higher one goes in liturgical ministry, the lower one needs to go into serving the poor.
I didn't see that, but I like it.
I mean, I was like, this is really profound and important especially for Bishop Barron to be posting. I hope to God he follows that in his personal life and his own humility of his own interior state and worship.
Yeah.
But this is the problem. And so anyway, but instead it looks like, I mean, the show was just tired. He was tired.
I was tired.
It's like, well, we were tired, but it's also like, it's just kind of, the show spoke of like a laziness.
Yeah.
Of like, why is he not even making an effort to like, He said in the beginning he's going to tell a joke that only makes sense at the end, and then he finished the show and then like totally forgot about the joke that he was going to make sense of.
And the audience reminded him, and then when
Yeah,
he tried to tie it in together, it made no sense. I generally don't like when people say, "I don't know what I'm going to talk about today." Like it's almost hubris, like pride, to say like, "Who knows where the Spirit's going to guide me, and I can give you something. I can deliver something wonderful to you, and I have no idea." Like,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not
that can
saying
go a lot of different directions, but yeah.
no, I'm not saying that like it's necessarily bad as a method, but to say it,
Oh, I
I
see.
think
To
is
call attention
reflective,
to it.
to call attention to it.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes it's not great as a method also, because that whole talk felt very disjointed. Like, put a little time, like plan a little bit. Don't just practice writing your book in front of us as you're like
Right.
exploring ideas. Like
Right.
we paid a lot of money to listen to something cohesive and coherent that we could take with us. Like I said, the thing I took away from it was him saying, "Be like Abel, not like Cain." Like, great.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks
Anyway,
for that.
let's get off Jordan Peterson. Let's go to the actual news. We'll move away from local news and move to more
Okay.
national news. And now we'll go into the sludge of politics.
All right.
We'll come
What
down
was
from
it? Hunter Biden's found guilty
Yes.
on 3 counts, and he could face, did I
Yes.
see, up to 25 years in prison? And Joe
Yep.
Biden has vowed to not pardon his son.
Vowed to not pardon his son, and he said that they accept they respect the judicial process as Hunter considers an appeal. He was found guilty on 3 felony gun charges. 54 years old, 25 years in prison, $750,000 in fines. His quote afterwards was, "I am more grateful today for the love and support I experienced from this last week from Melissa, my family, my friends, my community, than I am disappointed by the outcome." Recovery. This is one of the 3 angles I think that we should explore this story. Recovery is possible by the grace of God, and I am blessed to experience that gift one day at a time. So, this story is interesting because it's the intersection of 3 things that we're talking about. One would be politics, right? Trump's administration had a response, which was, "This trial has been nothing more than a distraction from the real crimes of the Biden crime family." Trump, the classic Trump fashion, which has raked in tens of millions of dollars from China, Russia, and Ukraine. Crooked Joe Biden's reign over the Biden family criminal empire is all coming to an end on November 5th, and never again will a Biden sell government excess for personal profit. So there's the political side of this, right? And what this looks like, especially on the heels of Trump being convicted of his charges. It's interesting. It's also interesting to me how quickly these trials are going. Do you remember back in the day? Back in my day, we had OJ trials that lasted months. These are done in 6 days, right? So there's the politics, and then there's the gun control question, and then there's the substance abuse angle. And it's like, these are 3 really important angles that can be unpacked. So do you have, like, what when you hear this story, what comes to your mind first among those 3?
I mean, first of all, do you put yourself in Biden's position?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he could pardon his son before being sentenced to potentially 25 years in prison. Now, despite other conspiracy theories of they could definitely change the sentencing or whatever, he could influence the sentencing. Let's just say it's 25 years in prison, or you pardon your son as a president before the election. It may or may not influence the election. It could be your last term. It could be you have another 4 years. What do you do in this situation?
Me?
Yeah.
I pardon my son immediately.
I'm
25
sorry,
years
is nobody being 1,000%?
I know.
He should pardon his son.
It's 25 years in prison for falsifying documents in a substance abuse. Like, he said, "No, I don't have any issues with narcotics," on a piece of paper, and he's going to get 25 years in prison. It's like the rest of his life. He's 53 years old, 54 years old. No, my political campaign is more important. I'm going to respect the judicial process, because if he doesn't, then that gives license to Trump's camp.
But I'm sorry, it's part of the judicial process that there can be a pardon from the president. Maybe there's some part of that I don't know, that he's not supposed to use it for family, but at the end of the day, of all the things that we could spend the next year talking about as what's wrong with Joe Biden, the one thing I would actually give him credit for is taking care of his kid and be like, now maybe that's, people will be like, oh, codependency, enmeshment, like he's a drug addict, he should face the consequences of actions. Okay, listen, yes, 100% true.
Think of if it was your kid.
You're going to keep him out of prison. Like, 100%.
No, and it just says something to me about the focus on his politics in his mind being more important.
It's all just, or in how it disintegrated his focus is. Like, it actually, he's not even like coherent enough to be authentic. It's like, I just can imagine like the years of old, reading documents from the founding fathers, from the original politics. Like, there was a circus. There's always a circus.
Mm-hmm.
But you have like gentlemen who are good upstanding men who feel very differently about their approach to politics and government. Fine. But like two dads on opposite sides of the spectrum be like, you're going to pardon your son, right?
Yeah, you're going to connect over the fatherhood and the family piece.
Like, what, how are you not going to, like, how is that even a question?
And I mean, I don't know. I don't know about what their actual relationship is like.
Yeah,
that's another piece.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he wants him in jail. I don't know, but whatever. The point is, this is just a disaster of a circus. Before even getting into the like legitimate considerations, gun control stuff. I think it makes sense that you need to be honest about drug addictions if you're purchasing a gun.
Sure. I have some conservative friends who are who love their guns, Second Amendment kind of people, and the argument they put forth is, well, Democrats are all about gun control, and here we have an example of illustrating to the president and the head of the Democratic Party that, hey, your gun control laws didn't really work in this case. Here's someone in your own family that got a gun, despite all the restrictions you want to put on people getting guns.
That's a good point.
So
that's a good point. I mean, I'm certainly a conservative who loves my guns.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I still think it's important that we do like a bit of a front end assessment and try to figure out who should not actually be given.
Yeah. I mean, do you think we have an adequate process? I mean, you have the liberal viewpoint, which is like, you don't need a bazooka. You don't need a bazooka. You don't need an assault rifle. Look at all these shootings in schools with all these like high powered weapons. And then you have conservatives coming back and saying like, actually, statistically, handguns like kill the most people. It's not actually a problem. It's just the optics on school shooting look so terrible. And then actually the real issue is mental health. It's not about guns. It's about mental health. My response to them is like, you have no idea what that means. It's a mental health problem. Like It is, but the uniqueness of exploring an individual's mental health in order to address the depths of their pain, which would cause them to commit a heinous act of shooting someone, is like so much more complicated than just painting the whole thing as a mental health issue. Like it's a huge thing. So right now it's just, do you have any mental health? Do you have any depression, any anxiety? Do you have any issues with substance abuse? Nope. Like, how is that an actual filter?
It's woefully inadequate, obviously, which is why it's really important that the sentencing, that he does get sentenced. He should go to prison. Objectively speaking, he should go to prison, and it should be an example to anybody else. It's like, don't lie on that form. If you get caught, you go to.
You think 25 years is a fair
I mean, maybe that's not fair. I don't know. I mean, in context of looking at all the circumstances, I don't know what else is, part of it, but it's
hard. It's hard for me. It's hard for me because this is the other question, which is the substance abuse issue. And I've worked with people and they're who have this struggle, and there's a lot of difficulties that associated with true freedom when you're in the throes of an addiction. And I mean, there's neurology, there's all kinds of stuff, and lying is just part of the disease at that point, where you have such tunnel vision for the substance that everything peripherally around that is irrelevant, because that substance is the only thing in your mind that gives you relief. And
Yeah.
and lies is just, it's just a way that I can have some kind of subjective experience of relief in my life.
Yeah.
And so if this guy's in the throes of addiction, right, in a way that he has no will, no freedom, and he lies on a piece of paper to get a gun, okay, for God knows what reason, probably to protect himself if he's dealing with deep like narcotics and the type of people he encounters, which are very unsafe.
What's your point?
My point is 25 years in prison seems a little bit inappropriate.
The consequences are totally irrelevant in consideration of like his subjective understanding and experience and compassion and all. Like, these are two totally separate conversations. You could say you can understand from a clinical perspective how he was in that position. That has nothing to do with like the purpose and place for law and order and punishment.
No, but these kind of factors go into like the judge's discretion in terms of sentencing.
Maybe he should be locked up in a mental institution for 25 years instead of a jail. That consideration maybe is made, but he's a danger to self and others in multiple ways. He's also a danger to law and order, and providing a scandalous example of breaking the law that has needs a just set of repercussions to make the point clear.
I want to rehabilitate the guy, and I don't know that 25 years in prison is going to help rehabilitate him.
Not a chance. He's not rehabilitating. Not a chance.
Not through that methodology.
Not through 25 years in prison. Not through 25 years anywhere. He's despite some miraculous supernatural, despite some supernatural intervention. Like, let's get real. Like like why would you even build a thought process on like
the hope someone can recover from substances?
It's not somebody. That's my point. You're disconnecting like the reality of his situation from like the idea. It's back to your point. It's like mental health. It's like such a large topic. Of course people can recover from drug addiction. Of course it's but it's like, what's his specific context, his specific life, his specific privilege, his specific wealth, power, influence.
Sure.
Like, he's not recovering.
I do not know.
Yes, we do. With all reasonable assumptions, we know. And we could be proven wrong. But if we're proven wrong, if he has a conversion, I'll be like, I am shocked. I am surprised. I am happy to be proven wrong on this point. But it's different than working with a drug addict and being like, here's this person that I think has a reasonably good chance. If they recover from their drug addiction, I'm not going to be shocked. I'm not going to be surprised. I'm going to think, here's what we thought was possible, and here's what we implemented, and here's what they were receiving and open to. And we have every reason to believe that this is a rational outcome of this particular treatment plan. That's not the case in this situation.
I don't know enough about his personal life and where he's at in his recovery, or his history, or his dynamics, or about his life to be able to make a statement about his
you know enough about
change.
Narcissistic family structures. About you can look at Jill and Joe Biden. You can figure out like not armchair psychology. I'm just saying
they're Catholics. They're Catholics.
Don't even go there. So duplicitous and disintegrated that they are a scandal to the church and the world.
I'm going to pray for Hunter Biden.
I will absolutely pray for Hunter Biden. I will pray for Joe Biden. I will pray for Joe Biden. They are absolute scandals in their public actions, not in reading their hearts and intentions, and their actual public displays of behaviors and true, real actions that we can all see. They are scandals to the church and the world.
It'll be interesting to see if he actually gets that kind of sentence.
John Paul II would say these are bad humans.
Yes.
They have made themselves bad by becoming what they are not through wrong choices and not lining themselves up with what is objectively true, good, and beautiful. Hunter, Joe, and Jill, and anybody else in their crime family.
Jill too. You're going full Trump on this? The Biden crime family?
I had to just add that in there.
All right. Hopefully this gets progressively more positive. Let's move to Apple Intelligence.
This is not going anywhere good today, folks. It's
Okay,
hump day. It's we're
it's
getting you across the hump.
I'm not sure what we're doing. So AI is finally coming to Apple on iPad, Mac, and iPhone, all of them. There's been a delay. Apple's been very conservative about this, but now we're finally going to integrate artificial intelligence into the world of Siri. So you know all those times where you ask Siri to do something and she's like, "No, I can't do that.
Yeah,
Not anymore. Not anymore.
I'm excited about this actually.
Not anymore." She is going to be deeply interwoven into the entirety of your iOS system, iOS 18.
I just can't wait for all of us to have it out, and then like for team meetings and stuff like that, we just have all the series talk to each other.
Yes.
Like, do we even have to show up to meetings anymore? Can we
I
just
love
have
you.
our phones talk to each other?
Yes. So there's going to be a lot of different things. A lot of different things this can do. It can talk across apps. That'll be good. You can just kind of talk to it like a person, like Iron Man and Jarvis. The idea of Jarvis is very attractive, but I wonder, like, is that, I have Alexa in my home, right? And it is really convenient to walk in and out of rooms. Oop, she can hear me. Alexa, be quiet.
You know, I switched you could switch the name to computer. It feels a lot more like 2000 Space Odyssey.
I wish
2001
I could choose
Space Odyssey.
wish I could choose which name.
You
They don't
can
allow for
change
that.
it to computer.
Yeah, but I want to change it to Jarvis.
Oh, mine turned on now.
And so it's nice walking in and out of a room and saying, like, whatever the name of the device is, like, turn the lights on, turn the lights off. It's convenient, but I'm also like, am I just slowly getting lazier? Like, all the convenience that these AI systems offer, like, I probably would have lost like 1/100th of a pound by walking over to the light and turning it off historically.
No, listen.
That's got to add up, right?
Bobby Angel's listening. He goes, "Did Terminator 2 teach us nothing about trusting machines?" We got to have the Terminator references, the Skynet references, every conversation that we bring this up. We always have to keep that in mind. You know what I just thought of? How cool, how interesting will it be? Like another psychological dimension of this. There will be a whole new industry, or it could be a whole new subset of psychology analyzing people's prompts.
Oh yeah.
Like, I was just thinking through this in my head. Like, if you look at my Chat GPT 4.0 right now, it's like, how do we create a model and take the psychology of John Paul II and implement it in such a way that it becomes the most known psychology in the world?
And I'm like, what's the score of the Celtics game?
Like, there's going to be so much that you can know about what's going on in people from their prompts.
Sure.
It's like, forget browsing history. That used to
history.
be like, oh, you got to go incognito. Don't let people know, especially if you're looking at bad stuff on the internet. They're going to know what you're browsing.
All we need is an AI to analyze people's prompts.
There you go.
The psychoanalysis done by
what can you tell me about
AI? Yeah. What do my ChatGPT prompts tell me about my personality? That's the prompt.
That, man, we should write that would be a great freebie download of like, ChatGPT prompts you can use to get to know yourself better.
Yeah. I do think though this is a whole nother level, because right now, to get involved with AI, not only is everyone, like, not everyone is down with like opening, like knowing what ChatGPT can do and using it and going into an app and pulling it out. But in the same way, like in the beginning, people were a little reluctant to catch up to the use of cameras on their phone. Now, like, this is the camera. Like, this is now the AI.
Right.
AI is going to be coming with us wherever we go. That's going to be a different psychological experience and make AI way more accessible to the masses. That's like another step in opening up AI to the world. The fact that Apple is adopting it.
Well, and actually, great Peterson point he made last night that I really liked was Hitler was one of the first examples of a hybrid machine-human interaction, when he was using microphones and speakers
Amplifying his voice.
to amplify his voice to hundreds of thousands of people who could have the direct, immediate, one-to-one experience of like, I hear Hitler's voice speaking to me.
Right.
And it was facilitated by technology.
Yeah, him and I are having our own kind of dialogue, our own kind of conversation. In the same way you and I are having like conversations with our
why you
viewers.
just held up your phone.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's what we do. I mean, that's our whole Voxer model for mentorship. It's like,
yeah,
you get a really personal experience of somebody that's really speaking directly to you.
Yes.
You know, it's amazing. I mean, how my patients have expressed this and explained this, like, especially if you put AirPods in, it's like you put a plug into your ear and you've got somebody's voice speaking directly to you.
You're not in the room with me right now. We're very far away from each other.
Yeah,
and you are in my head, Greg.
But even like now, I mean, peripherally, and the phenomenon of this moment, it's like we both know this is being recorded, it's being live streamed, a bunch of other people are listening. But then when you have like a channel and an app that's like a confidential one-to-one channel for communication, it's super personal.
Yes.
And people's, many times, most people, when they first hear about our model, they're like, how is this going to be a personal experience through an app? Like, what are you talking about? It's like, it's really effective.
Yeah. It's funny how like one of the issues is, it's like one of the common objections is like the fact that it's asynchronous. It's not live, but the reality is it becomes experientially live. It's like not asynchronous experientially. It's like when I'm listening to a message or recording a message, it's live now for me as it's happening. So it is connective in that way. It's almost just like we're taking turns speaking and we're not interrupting each other. So that's good.
Yeah, it's so this is all like in a sense, this is nothing new, and we're just going to that next level, and it can be as positive as John Paul II using a speaker system to speak to the youth that first captured my heart in 1997 in Paris.
Yes.
When he told us to not be afraid and to go out into the streets and the marketplaces and be where the people are.
Yes.
Like, he spoke to my heart directly through my ears with his voice, communicated through airwaves and sound waves. And wow. Or you're Hitler, influencing the masses and leading people to evil. It's not the technology that's the problem. It's the use of the technology. So here we are.
I wonder, one of the things that I still see lacking in the use of AI and the fact that Siri is going to just be in my phone, something that the world of the Avengers and Marvel Comics promises that we don't have yet, is the visual dimension of Jarvis. And when you see Iron Man in those movies where he's just like, he's an engineer, but he's just moving things around with his hands that aren't there. It's like the projection, the 3D projection.
Yeah.
And like, imagine we get to a point where we're doing Voxer accompaniment and through the app, like there's a projection of the person being live with you as it's occurring, like a visual projection, like the person's in the room with you. Like, imagine if you and I were doing this show and there's a camera somewhere else and there's a seat over there. And it's like, I'm looking across the room and you're sitting in the seat. That would be cool.
Yeah. Like Star Wars.
Yeah, holographic projection.
Holographic projection. That's it. It'll happen.
It's gonna be so cool.
It's gonna be awesome. But we have to just keep being super intentional about using these things for good, not evil.
Yes,
for sure. It takes a lot of work.
Yes.
So it can't be lazy.
No,
we can't be consumers that are just like, oh, I can get the Celtics score. No,
I want to be on the court, on the courtside. They have the 3D goggles now. I've tried them on where it's like courtside sports. It's a little disorienting. It's not great. But if you get to the point where it's like you're at the game itself and you're like feels like you're sitting on the court while it's happening around you, that's cool.
Yeah, that's definitely gonna happen.
Yep.
That's so cool.
Okay, so let's transition a little sidestep and talk about elephants.
Okay.
This is actually an AI article.
I didn't see this one yet. So this is you're hitting me fresh here.
Yeah. So have you heard HERD? Apparently, African elephants call each other by name. New research involving machine learning determined which elephant sounds were likely names based on how they responded. For instance, a mom calling out to a calf. They tested the results by playing recordings to individual elephants who would energetically respond to their name sounds but ignored others. And so there's more about this. Low rumble sounds. Anyway, the machine learning model analyzing the sounds were able to identify the elephant being addressed 27.5% of the time, a much higher rate than when the model was fed random audio. So essentially, elephants have names, and I've heard of this before, and recently, not just this article, but how AI and language models will help us actually decipher and understand communication between animals.
Thing in the world. It's the coolest thing.
It's the coolest thing in the world. Like, to actually know what animals are communicating to one another. It's like a Disney movie.
I mean, and also, we're going to be able to translate what we want to communicate, and then be able to speak to animals.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, so many ways that
was it the movie Up where the dogs had the collar?
Yeah.
And they could talk?
Yep.
And they were like, food,
definitely going to happen.
Food.
Definitely going to
happen. What would you name your elephant?
No, they have names.
I know, but you could name them too.
No, I want to find out their name. I'm going to ask them their name.
Let me phrase the question. What do you think are like the 5 most popular elephant baby names in 2023?
23 or 24?
Well, it's not. I mean, we're not done with 24 yet. We need to gather more data before we have 24. But what would you guess that the 23 study?
Oh, the 23. Okay, now
indicates the 5 most popular elephant names.
Well, do you think that they're like, just like Disney is sort of ahead of their time? And actually, all these, you ever watch the prophecies of The Simpsons? Mm-hmm. I mean, The Simpsons prophecies. Look that up on YouTube if you want to spend a couple minutes in entertainment. Okay. It's remarkable what can be prophesied through the cartoons. Yeah. So especially The Simpsons is uncanny.
Yeah.
But if Disney prophesied talking dogs with a collar and up, did Disney prophesy the kinds of names like Dumbo?
that name is taken on different meaning. Yeah.
Mike Marshall says, I'd give my life savings to hear Dr. Greg's attempt to say an elephant's name. We'll have that as a new mindfulness exercise pretty soon.
Well, it's interesting when they in the world of bottlenose dolphins, who also name each other, scientists and parakeets also, orange-fronted parakeets, they mimic each other's signature noises to get each other's attention. So their name is like the unique sound that you make as an animal. That's what other animals know you as. That is your name.
That's really cool.
So like your name would be something like Unpack.
The lingo and the words.
Yeah, it's like something that you do would be your name.
Isn't that remarkable? Isn't that really beautiful? Like, think about that. If we could actually communicate in a way that, like, we're given a name, and I think there's obviously, I mean, I would assume something pretty important about that theologically and everything else.
Yeah.
But to have a name emerge out of the identity of the person, like, as people get to know you, it's kind of the way nicknames emerge.
Yes, and also, please don't send letters based on what I'm about to say.
or do. We love letters.
Or do it. Or correct me. But my
mailbag at CatholicPsych.com.
My loose, uninformed, unresearched understanding is
here we go.
This is also the case, I believe, in Native American culture. I'm thinking of the movie like Dances with Wolves, and the character's name was like Stands with a Fist. Or I just saw this 1883 movie that came out, and they the girl was named Lightning with the Yellow Hair. It's like what people do becomes like their name. Like there's like
I'm just really proud of you for not calling them Indians.
Listen, I'm trying my best here, and I'm trying to honor the tradition and saying like that. I think it's a beautiful thing to have a description based on your behavior and what you do, like being associated with like your name.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's really cool. I think that's great.
And it's happening in the world of animals. Obviously, there's an analog here.
Yeah, yeah.
And AI, the beauty of AI is helping us understand this.
What was
Like,
the one from? What was the elephant, or was he? He was a woolly mammoth. What was it in Sesame Street? Snuffleupagus.
yes, Snuffleupagus.
I feel like that's an accurate elephant name.
Snuffy.
So, like, you look at an elephant, you're like, you're a Snuffleupagus.
Well, I mean, big bird. Yes, he is.
Yeah, sure.
He is a
There you
big
go.
bird.
Stands
Yep.
with yellow feather.
Oscar the Grouch.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something really cool, and it's really like how we nickname each other. Like over time, you get a
Yes.
reason for a nickname if you get a nickname.
Yes, for
I
sure.
think that's cool.
I have a buddy of mine who we call the Man. That's his nickname.
That's you just won. Like
You're
you
the
won
man.
life.
You're
How
the
old? You know,
man.
what are you in middle school when you get a name like that? And then
I mean, and he's in his 40s, so it's
and
stuck.
that's like the basketball court. That's where that comes up.
He's lived up to it. No, just in social context.
Yeah, you won life. But middle school, you won already. Cash in
All
the
right,
chips.
Listen, we're moving at a good clip here. We have time. I want to get to this last story. I think this is going to be entertaining for everyone. Okay. I have to pull up this article a little bit because I don't have all the details. But this is an article about how social conventions have changed. So 21 normal practices in 2024 that were the epitome of rude way back when. Whether or not you even stop to think about it. All right. So here's number 1. I want to hear your thoughts on this. Wearing hats indoors. Not going to lie, it still bugs me.
I'm not gonna lie. I faced down this part of me in my house and letting our kids wear hats in the house.
You're old school.
It's one of these. It's one of these things where I'm like, why do I have that narrative in my head?
Yeah.
And is that worth carrying forward? And I decided it's not.
For the balding men of the world.
Not only that, I'm like, is there really like, I have so many things that I train my kids around and then I'm trying to keep my kids like living up to.
Yeah.
Like, do I need one more thing? And it's like, when it came up, it's like, my kids are so wonderful. They're so precious. And then they got a hat. Like, one of them got a hat and it was like, just cool. They're like, look at this hat, you know, and it was like a 7-year-old or a 6-year-old.
Take it off in the house,
like,
kid.
Look at this hat. It's a cool hat. They just like it. It's a cool expression of their uniqueness, their personality. Like,
yeah.
What am I going to do? Come in here and squash that? For what reason?
You shouldn't.
I don't think there's any good reason to.
I used to love like sports hats when I was in school, and I always have to take them off in school. And so there's part of me that has that knee-jerk reaction to take hats off in the house. But yeah, it's changed, obviously. Like kids today don't have that kind of hang up, but we do.
Yeah, I mean, even literally, and I'll say this, I hope this doesn't scandalize anybody. Send in mail if you're upset by this, but even at the dinner table, even at the meal table,
it should be okay to wear a hat at dinner.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I do not pull the take the hat off the head card at the dinner table.
You're growing.
But I will say this, the one line that I have, which I do pull the card, is you got to wear a shirt at the table.
No shirt, no shoes, no service.
Are these normal, like, this is like Gen X rules, like you grow up Gen X / millennials, like you put on a shirt and you sit, like, so if you're outside playing and you're running around, if it's a hot summer day and it's like, I mean, literally, honestly, if it's a barbecue, if we're outside grilling and I sit down to eat my burger, I'm putting a shirt on.
I think it's on the same level as hat. You need to take a good look at that. Look at yourself. This next one I don't even want to talk about because we could talk about this for days, but I'll just read it.
Okay.
Just know. Back then, it was rare to question the authority of teachers. I often read stories from teachers, and I'm kind of shocked by how students treat their teachers these days. Also, back then, parents rarely intervened if their kid was disciplined or received a low grade. According to teachers, parents get livid when their darling special angel is reprimanded anyway. This is a huge topic. I think it's been well documented. The culture in the classroom is way different than it used to be.
Yeah, no. Read Anxious Generation, read Bad Therapy, read all these books that are already out there. That No,
Okay.
it's crazy. It's
We
like
need
the same level of like, it's how dare you question the
authority.
authority of my child.
Right. Okay, number 3. Wearing pajamas out of the house.
Oh, this gets me so much. How is this on the list? It is
This is why
unbelievable.
it's why it's on the list, to get this kind of reaction. I think when this first started becoming more popular, I appreciated it. I wore pajamas outside of the house. Like I felt like relief from the pressure. But then as time went on, I started to realize like it creates a whole kind of psychological experience. And not like get yourself ready in the morning and like take a
It's
shower.
so I'm
It's
such a
unhealthy.
stickler on this. Wow, I'll just like reverse direction and throw myself under the bus here. It is a solid rule in our house that you do not wear pajamas downstairs for the day.
Oh, downstairs.
Not
Even
even
in the house.
in the house. If you're not
Oh
sleeping,
my.
you are putting on regular. Now, I'm not saying you got to be like dressed up. We're not Jordan Peterson here with like 3-piece suits. But it's like, I don't care if you're wearing basketball shorts or like sweats, but it's like, here's pajamas. Psychologically, mentally, it's like prepare for and be in sleep mode, or prepare for psychologically be ready for waking mode. And our life, we have so many hours awake. We got to utilize it. We're not sitting here blending the reality between two, where I'm going to use my God-given waking hours and put myself in some kind of lazy, sleepy. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
How would you feel about my daughter wearing it, alternating Disney princess dresses for both bed and life awake with no interruption?
Look at, I do
Like,
not judge other families' ways of doing
listen,
things at this level.
she wears a different Disney princess dress to bed and then is in it all day, and like we'll hear nothing.
I do not. First of all, it's kind of reversing the problem. It's not. That's sort of a
It's
loophole.
regular clothes to bed, right? Yeah, I know. But I think in general, the spirit of our household is like, it's not like waking versus sleeping clothes. It's like lounging versus activity clothes. So like
Yeah.
if you're in your house and you're lounging and you're wearing sweatpants or pajamas, or like pajamas and sweatpants kind of blend together nowadays. It's like sometimes you can't even tell if
Yeah, not
somebody's
in our
pajamas
house.
or sweatpants.
Not in our house.
Okay. All right, let's keep going.
Well, whoever the future therapist of one of my kids is now has some good material to work with.
Oh, I'm wearing pajamas downstairs next time I come over your house and sleep over.
You do already. What are you talking about?
I'm just gonna stare at your kids and be like, "What's up?"
Every time other people are around, we have the conversation before and after they leave. Not all families follow the same rules, and it's okay if you see some differences between other families. That doesn't mean that they're wrong, and it doesn't.
Don't yell at the guest. You're rule following older kids.
Exactly.
Don't yell at the
tell
guests for
kids
wearing
that Santa
pajamas.
Claus is not real.
Oh, gosh.
You can't tell other kids that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, number 4. I raise my kids not to use, wear, eat, or spend their gifts before writing a thank you note. It seems acceptable nowadays to thank people in person or with a shared post, photo, text. I've accepted that. I have relatives who don't even acknowledge that they've received a gift, let alone appreciate it. That is not cool. Thank you notes are a thing of the past.
Yeah, that's really sad. I've mixed feeling. Well, I don't have mixed feelings about it. It's fully sad. I've mixed behaviors in terms of like, I try to maintain that. Like,
yeah,
if there's something like, that I can make the effort for, if I think of it, if I remember it, it's still in my toolbox.
I think the thank you is important. I don't know that it has to be a written note.
No, I think nice. The written note is like something really special and important about that.
It is, definitely, absolutely. But I mean, I think I would feel, I don't know if I'm honest, I think I would feel slighted. Actually, no, I guess not. A lot of times I give gifts and I'm not anticipating a thank you.
No,
it's nice when
a thank you is a thank you. Like that's not even a question. I don't even think it's accepting the fact that the form of thank you has changed. So sending a text message right after getting a gift, or even saying it in person. Okay, that's nice. But there used to be an important mark of actual appreciation when you take the time to sit down with a note card and write out a note and stick it in the mail.
You would have no idea what my thank you card said if I sent you one. My writing
Because
is
of your
so
handwriting?
illegible. It's so illegible. It's more shameful and embarrassing to me to actually have to use my handwriting to say thank you.
I think that's part of the sort of, allure of it, and it's like part of the treasure of it. It's like
My chicken
this
scratch.
came from somebody's heart. Like this is actually their chicken scratch. It's actually like you
Here,
can imagine they sat down to write it.
here's my ugly thank you. Okay, number 5. People who bring their pets everywhere and anywhere. Sometimes they stick one of those service dog vests on them, but it's often obvious that they are just pets and not service dogs. Pets everywhere. That's
Yeah,
new.
that's part of the anti-children culture that we're living in now. And it's
Right.
also it's a weakness, it's a laziness. I was at a coffee shop yesterday meeting somebody for a meeting, and there's this older gentleman, probably like, I don't know, 60, and he's sitting in the couch at this coffee shop drinking his coffee, and he's got a poodle next to him on the couch.
Mm.
And then he's like super weird. He's like oddly sort of like staring at other people in the shop. I saw him staring at me. He's like listening to my conversation in this meeting that I was having. And then I see the guy take his poodle up next to him, scrunch him up next to his face, and take a selfie.
Mm.
I'm like, this world is going to hell quickly.
I mean, it's not wanting to have kids or delaying of kids, and then the pet becomes the surrogate child, which you pour all your love and energy into, and you elevate to the level of where a child should be, ultimately.
It's really sad. It's really sad. It's like talk about the opposite of the greatness of the human person and what we're called to become. Talk about become what you are not.
Properly speaking, though, like there's actually nothing wrong with having a pet with you, but it symbolizes a deeper problem. Like, okay, the dog's like, who cares? He's got a poodle with him, like, just like who cares if a kid is wearing a hat inside the house? Like, it's a social convention. It could change, but the issue is, what does it reflect? That's the problem.
Maybe I'd have to think about that. I think there's a social convention that's connected to a health issue. Like, I don't want a dog in my coffee shop where I'm getting a coffee.
They say a dog's mouth is 10 times cleaner than a human mouth.
Come on. I don't care about the dog's mouth. I care about them walking around in the ground, stepping in poop, like all sorts of like germs and all sorts of stuff. And I'm not germophobic, but like there's a progress in culture when we went from the 70s and 80s where people were smoking cigarettes in their house and their, ceilings were yellow.
Well, so I'm saying there's some dirty humans out there too.
Right, but it's like how come part of culture has progressed to be like, we don't want cigarette smoke ruining people's restaurant experience, but we can have like animals tropsing around in their own feces, like walk that in and sit that up on the couch, no problem. Like, this is backwards. It's not just a social norm.
Yes. I don't know. I think it's fine to have your dog with you, or like in the abstract. I think it's not fine to like replace your children with your dog, but I mean, and I would look at psychologically why you need to bring your dog into a coffee shop with you. I mean, it may be like for practical reasons you have no one to watch the dog, and like, I don't think it's the end of the world in that case. I think what is driving the decision is really what needs to be examined. Man, we are like, these are so good, and we could say so much about each one of these, and we're only at number. You want to do one more before we call it? Maybe we'll pick
All right,
up
we
on
got to
this
call
later.
it. Yeah, one more.
Calling grown-ups by their first names.
Yeah, this is also locally, like, depends on geographic location. I think if you
True.
still go down south, it's really beautiful. Like, people still say Mr. and Miss, even if it's a first name, it's like, Mr. Jeff or whatever, and it's like, or ma'am and sir.
Yeah,
if you don't know, it's like so much. Yeah, like that's just sad.
I think so too. I think
we try to raise our kids like that too, but then it's like, and then the adults are like, oh, just call me this or whatever. It's like, thanks, bud.
Yeah.
Thanks, dude. You're like the landscaper guy, or like the mailman or whatever. It's like,
yeah, I think it's akin in some ways to like what I think the appropriate, like in our professional circles, in terms of what to call one another at work, and or what to have clients call me. Like, I think it's a bit much to impose someone calling me Dr. Violette, right? That's informal. It's very distant, somebody I'm working with. I think on the other hand, calling me Bry or Brian or dude or man is a little bit like too informal. That doesn't recognize the hierarchical difference or like the title that I've earned. So like Dr. Brian is a blending of like accessibility and tenderness and openness and connection, but it's also acknowledges the title. And so the
Yeah.
same thing is true like when you just take the Mr. or Mrs. off, or Ms. or Ms. or whatever from a parent, from the perspective of a child, it's an erosion of authority, and I don't think that's good.
No, it's terrible. And I mean, it's like you could see it both ways. Like even with the doctor example, it's good because it's like we have to mark the objective structure of the relationship.
Right.
It's like I'm talking to you because you're a doctor. Like you're trained for this, and I have this particular need, and that's why I've come to you. Like we're gonna keep that front and center in the room. And then, but it's also true. Like adults are called by titles because they're supposed to be acting like adults.
Yes.
Well, sorry to say, that's becoming
adults walking around with pajamas on inside the house. Like, what are they doing?
Holding selfies with dogs at coffee shops, and like he might as well have been in pajamas. It's like I'm not calling him Mr. Anything. Like he's acting like a child. You get a child's name.
Yeah.
Probably the elephants would figure that out.
Good old Snuffy. I'm trying to come up with something creative and funny with the word trunk in it, but I got nothing yet.
Well, on that note, folks, we're going to have to wrap this up for today. See you Friday.